The first meeting of the G20 under the presidency of South Africa takes place in Johannesburg this week. Deputy finance ministers and central bank governors from the G20 member countries are meeting to discuss the rise in global inflation and interest rates amid low economic growth globally. Business editor Xolani Mbanjwa is at that meeting and joins us now. Xolani, good morning. Talk us through the agenda for this four-day meeting. Certainly what they're talking about affects everybody, whether you're in the macro or the micro economy.
Good morning, Imani. Indeed, the agenda this week in the next 4 days is going to include things that really impact on everyone in the world. And this is why this first meeting of the G20 series of meetings taking place here in Sandton is an important one. Central bank deputy governors and the deputy ministers from the 20 G20 countries and many other organizations such as the World Trade Center, the World Bank are also here to lend their voice, because we've seen that in the past 5 years since the COVID-19 pandemic, the global economy has gone through a whirlwind where the growth has been stagnant, affecting job creation and also affecting household debt and public debt alike. And something that is also important that has happened in the past 5 years as the two wars between Ukraine and Russia and the war in the Middle East. Those have had a significant impact on inflation globally, global economic growth, on job creation. They have had an impact on our daily lives, including how much we pay for petrol. So this particular gathering is such an important one, and there's tight security here to actually welcome the guests who are going to be trashing out some of the solutions that they think should actually be at the forefront of global leaders, for global leaders to tackle these issues. So this is the first of the 230 meetings, 130 of which will take place here in South Africa. And it's something that is quite important that you are seeing a lot of luminaries, a lot of high-profile global leaders here to actually trash out how the world should respond to the stagnant economic growth globally.
Yeah, and it's a big one. And let us remember the bigger picture, Xolani, is that for all these countries represented, they all have their own national agendas at the forefront. It's a question of what takes priority, how well they're able to represent that on the table and synthesize so that everybody gets something at least. We know that there has been a set-up meeting between South Africa and the African Union. Of course, the African Union and the EU are two of the continental bodies really represented there as well, to bring their interests to the fore. I mean, how much, again, and this is a recurring question we've heard, Xolani, how much say are we really going to have in the year of this presidency to shape the agenda in Africa's favor? We think of so many things around trade tariffs. We think of the activation of ACFA, for example. We think about predatory mining, you know, the ups and downs that we're already dealing with. And for this to have any credibility, they really need to have some traction on those issues.
You're absolutely right. It's really the question that is always burning as to how much traction each country has, how much say each country has when it comes to this G20 bloc of nations. Well, here, there's not one single leader. Although South Africa is the presidency, has the presidency of the G20, all the voices are taken as equal. What is important for South Africa is that they drive their agenda, and they've already said that their agenda is centralized around equality, solidarity, which is the theme for this particular G20. It's something also important that when the different tracks that are actually talking about different things, including global security, including hunger and poverty, South Africa sets the tone and sets the agenda as the presidency of the G20, taking over, of course, some of the things that Brazil would have put a stamp on of their own as they were the previous presidency for the G20. So what is important, however, is that on this particular Monday morning, South Africa is leading global leaders to talk about important issues as far as South Africa sees them. And as far as South Africa is saying, they have put the African agenda at the forefront, making sure that the African Union's Agenda 2063 is actually met, making sure that the playing field when it comes to trade is leveled. It's something that is quite important, Iman, that in such a gathering, unlike the UN, there are equal voices in terms of what is being discussed. And that's something important to note on this particular G20 meeting.
Business editor Xolani Mbanjwa, thank you very much for that.